Welcome to the University of San Francisco School of Management. My name is Elizabeth Merkel, and I am the Director of Graduate Recruiting and Admissions. I'm excited that you are all here joining us this evening for our lecture on big data and personalized marketing. Before I do turn it over to our speakers, however, I wanted to get a sense for who we have in the room. So could my current students raise their hands for me? Current students. Okay, there's a few of you. Good. Alumni. Alums, excellent. And then, I guess, friends of the university. Wonderful. Okay. Well, for those of you that are friends, I'd like to share a little bit of information about the School of Management with you very quickly, if you don't mind. We were founded in 1855 by 3 Jesuits. And we have a long-standing tradition of excellence here in the San Francisco Bay Area. The University of San Francisco owns this building, and all of our graduate classes for the School of Management are actually conducted in this facility. We have 8 unique graduate degrees that are offered here in both full-time as well as part-time formats, and/or formats designed for working professionals. And I think what's really unique to the University of San Francisco, as you can see here, is that we educate across all 3 sectors, private, public, and nonprofit, which is really reflective of the city within which we all work and live, San Francisco. I would like to invite all of you again that are friends to learn more about the school and its programs. You can feel free to ask any of the students or alumni that are seated next to you or around you. We also invite you to contact us at any point in time, and we have additional materials outside of the room on either side, so please feel free to take those as you leave. And of course, if you're interested and you hear something really exciting today during this lecture, we invite you to live tweet, and we have 2 hashtags here for you, so please do use those. Without further ado, however, I know you're not here to listen to me, but our speakers. And so who I'd like to introduce first is actually Yannette Interian. She is an assistant professor here at the University of San Francisco School of Management. Her research interests are in the area of data mining and applied statistics using large-scale data sets as they apply to problems in advertising, viral media, and online social networks. She holds a PhD in applied mathematics from Cornell University and a BS in mathematics from the University of Havana. She worked at Google for 5 years as a data scientist and worked with Google+, Google TV ads, and YouTube. That said, I ask that you please welcome Yannette.
Hi, so right now I'm an assistant professor here at USF, and I teach at the analytics program, master's programs in analytics, one of the programs that you saw right here. So I invite you that if you have any questions about the program, this is an intensive 1-year program. We are graduating data scientists with highly technical skills. So if you are interested in that, please, I can ask any questions. I can answer any questions after the talk. Oh, okay.
Okay. Is this better?
Oh, okay. No?
No? Better? There we go.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Okay. So I was saying that I'm a professor at the analytics program, and this is a 1-year intensive program, a master's program. It's highly technical, and if any of you have interest in the program, please, we can have a chat after the event. So I'm here to present our speakers. We have a guest company, TellApart. TellApart helps companies leverage data to drive sales through personalized marketing across digital channels and devices. TellApart provides an integrated suite of marketing solutions that allows marketers to deliver personalized messages in real time across display ads, Facebook, email, and mobile. And we have 3 speakers. I'm going to introduce them. Nicholas Gorski, okay, who is a software engineer. I was just chatting with him about all these techniques that we love. And Nick focuses on understanding shopping behavior on behalf of TellApart clients. He has built systems like customer value scoring engine that powers the company's personalized marketing solutions. He holds a undergraduate degree in computer engineering and a master's and a PhD in computer science from University of Michigan. Then we have Jason Gatoff, who is the head of marketing at TellApart. Jason is responsible for all aspects of marketing at the company, including messaging, product marketing, sales enablement, competitive intelligence, and PR. Jason has a BA in economics from the State University of New York College at Geneseo. And finally, we have Sherwin Bajai, which is an account executive and sales and business development. Sherwin is the company's most tenured salesperson and has helped to fuel their rapid growth over the past couple of years. He earned his BA in business and politics from the University of Puget Sound. Okay, so we're gonna welcome our speakers, and we're gonna have a Q&A session at the end. So welcome.
Let's see if you guys can hear me. Well, thank you guys for all joining us today. I'm going to ask another question. Since we're talking about big data at a school of business, I want to get a better sense of who's here in the room. So let's do a little self-assessment here. Who would consider themselves a marketing or business operations or general business type person? All right. Who would consider themselves a data scientist, an analytical kind of big data focused person? All right. Do we have any straight up software engineers in the room? Okay, we got a couple. So we have a general business context, so that will help us through the Q&A. As I mentioned, we prepared a couple slides here today, but we want to make this a very interactive discussion. So we'll have Q&A at the end formally, but if there's something specific that you're getting hung up with, don't hesitate to let us know, and we'll answer that question up front. So we're here to talk about fast data driving personalization. And when Nick gets up here, he'll talk about why we talk about fast data as opposed to big data. That's a key part of his section. But when we talk about fast data driving personalization, we're talking about all this great innovation that's happening around us that's helping marketeers have really, truly differentiated experiences with their shoppers. So this is the agenda that we put together. And there's a number of forces that might be native to you, given that so many of you are business focused, but we wanted to kind of talk about it because it sets the stage as to why we do what we do, and it requires the techniques that Nick and his team build at TellApart. So one of them, living here in Silicon Valley in particular, there's a rapid proliferation of marketing options. If you think about a marketeer, not that long ago, they were dealing with TV. Do I do a 15-second commercial? Do I do a 30-second commercial? What's my print strategy going to be? And then when digital came about, there's all these standard type formats for display ads. But now, with innovation that's happening around us all the time, there's new and interesting things that they have to deal with. So Facebook has compelling ways, but it's really cool, but it's different than anything they've ever done in the past. Twitter, where their promoted tweets and their ad campaigns, their ad formats, it's different. Pinterest is a totally different beast. And Yahoo, with some of their native ad formats that are tried to be kind of melding, being told to speak up louder, melding the combination of content and marketing. And while all these things provide great opportunities for marketeers, it also provides a little complexity. And this is new stuff that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Another trend is mobile. We were talking about before, the crazy results that Apple had today with the number of iPhones out in the market, right? So mobile's hot. There's no question that the mobile phone is a key way that you have to interact with shoppers today. But one thing that's important is that we believe it's not about mobile, it's about multi-device. Mobile is a key part of the overall path to purchase, but it's just that, it's a path. Each person here interacts with their phone and their other devices in a different way. Whether it's their work computer, their personal computer, their tablet, their phone, they're interacting. So while mobile is really important, we don't believe you should be looking at it as a silo. Another key trend is the sophistication of consumers. People have rapidly changed how they interact, how they expect to be treated by brands and how they interact with brands. And Forrester did a survey this spring that they published in the fall saying, being for senior level marketeers, what are the biggest challenges you're facing? And the #1 challenge was personalization. Shoppers today expect a truly personalized experience. When we say personalized, we're not talking about big segment level marketing that's happened in the past. It's true one-to-one personalization. Which brings us to the 4th key trend that we find with the marketeers that we work with, is that there needs to be a consistent experience across all these touch points, right? So there's all these new ad formats. There's all these different devices. There's this true personalization, and it needs to be consistent across whether it be an email, a display ad, a Facebook communication. And with all this complexity, it's just the human mind can't handle that themselves. So that's why you have to rely on the machines, big data, and machine learning. And that's why companies like TellApart are here. We work with our clients to bring the latest advances in machine learning predictive analytics so they can handle this very complex world that we live in today. And on that note, I'm going to hand it off to Sherwin to talk a little bit more about TellApart.
So I'll hold the mic, and I'll use it if you guys need me to. But,
Yes.
I think we do.
You do?
Yeah.
Is that working? Hello?
Yeah.
Is that good? Great. Well, thank you for the university for having us. We're all excited to be here to share a little bit more about TellApart and fast and big data. I'll start with what Jason, the question that Jason opened up with, because I think there's an interesting element when you think about TellApart and how the team is structured there. The majority of the folks in this room have some sort of business operations or marketing affiliation. The exact opposite is true at TellApart, right? We have more machine scientists, more data scientists on staff than we have business and marketing people, right? By 2 to 3x. So again, just kind of a precursor into what Nick's going to be talking about, but really an important piece of what we are doing at TellApart is taking massive amounts of data and really driving personalization in the form of revenue and conversions for our partners. So I'm going to take a couple minutes just to review, give you an intro into TellApart, what we do, how we're a little bit different, and then I'll save some of the results or the impact for later in the presentation. TellApart's a predictive marketing platform, right? We're taking, like we said, massive amounts of data to be able to, one, understand who these shoppers are. Once you understand who the shopper is and you can value that shopper, you can make correct predictions, right? Predictions really important, and Nick will get to this in a moment. But predictions are the core of our business, right? We're a performance-driven business, meaning that we're not driving impressions or clicks on behalf of our partners. We're actually driving conversions. That becomes a really important point that we'll talk about more later. But being able to do this prediction across all these different marketing channels really allows marketers to have one consistent and integrated message across all channels. So really think of us as kind of channel agnostic. We participate in every channel, email, audience, traditional core retargeting, Facebook, mobile or cross-device, and on-site personalization and offers. But what's interesting is we're agnostic to these channels. Everything we do is focused on that individual shopper, right? Understanding that shopper's behavior, that shopper's characteristics, and our ability to correctly value them, and then learn if we've made a mistake in that judgment. We're driving real results for our partners, meaning display is now driving 8 to 12% of their top line revenue, right? Everybody's heard about Google and search targeting. SEO. Everybody's heard about email and the power of email, right? It's a 100% margin channel. Display is now able to have that same impact, right? You're driving very meaningful return on ad spend for partners and doing so very efficiently. Finally, we're able to do this, like I said, across all channels. So you have that integrated voice, that one consistent dialogue with each of your shoppers. Personalized advertising, I think you guys have all experienced this at one point or another. Traditional ads like you see right here with the Sur La Table ad, very product level, very relevant, highly personalized ads that are targeted for each individual shopper, right? We have hundreds of millions of permutations of that same ad for that particular retailer. How? We know what that person was interested in, but more importantly, we know what that person may be interested in the future. So a huge element of our platform is discovery, right? 58% of the time we're actually showing products, people go on to buy products that they didn't initially come in to look at on our platform. That's a really powerful and important part of the platform. I'll start with thumb-stopping content, right? Newsfeed is the highest coveted real estate on the internet today, period, right? And in some cases, we're paying $40, $50 CPMs for this traffic. It's powerful, right? The content we put together We call thumb-stopping content, right? This is the type of ad that will stop you from scrolling down your newsfeed, right? These types of ads are very beneficial, and they have a huge impact for our marketers. So we don't miss an opportunity to show these ads to their consumers. And then finally, again, consistent messaging across every channel. Again, right on your mobile device, being able to see that same product and/or a recommended product based on that initial product that you came in to look at on a mobile device. This is all done in real time, purely programmatic, completely dynamic ads that are created for each individual in every single one of these channels, or across every single one of these channels. Just to highlight email and sort of personalization across other channels, you guys have all seen display ads, you've seen newsfeed ads, you've seen Facebook right-hand side ads. How do you do this across email? Right, so version 1 right here, the Revolve ad. Revolve sends hundreds of, probably millions of emails a year. I was gonna say hundreds of millions, more like millions of emails a year. By just inserting this one line of code to be able to drive additional personalization, we're taking that same intelligence that we've captured on the site from that shopper's experience and injected a level of personalization in the email, which is driving really massive results, right? So in this case, I think there was 25% increase in CTR, which doesn't matter. The conversion rate was really, really high. These people went on to actually buy. What does this mean? You and I, everybody in this room may get the same email, but this part, this blue outline part, is completely personalized to each of us based on our experience on that site prior. Version 2, this is almost a digital catalog in some ways, right? So we're taking that experience from the site on Pottery Barn in this particular example, and we're creating an experience that's unique just to you. Email's been around for a long time, but email has a lot of benefits, right? Email is a massive driver for marketers. 80% of emails are opened on smartphones, and I'll tell you why that's important in a second. But this makes email fun again. It makes email relevant again. People aren't just going to dismiss and unsubscribe, right? By looking at these types of emails, they're going to see that its message is meaningful, the content is valuable, and they're going to engage with these. And that's why we see such high engagement rates and conversions as a result of email. Finally, omnichannel. When you think about TellApart and everything that we do for our partners, omnichannel is a really important piece of that, right? Identity is the core of everything we do, like Jason mentioned. Once you identify that shopper, value them appropriately, and then make those personalized predictions, omnichannel is another vector, another dimension of data that you can add to this. And it's really important for our omnichannel partners to be able to take CRM data, login data, any sort of store data, any sort of house file that they have, to be able to include it in our marketing stack, right? That only enriches their models that much more. It allows us to do a lot more personalization in the offline world. One example is geo-targeting. If we know somebody lives within 5 miles of the downtown Neiman Marcus store, we can do geo-targeted ads, right? We can go in and we can personalize advertisements uniquely for them, which would be different than the Chicago store, for instance. So there's a lot of powerful information that we can add into the stack to be able to make it more powerful for our retailers so they can drive more conversions. With that, I'll tell you how I'll pass it along to Nick so he can tell you how it's done, and then I'll come back to share some impacts of what he's going to tell you about.
Hi, I'm an engineer at TellApart. They don't let me talk to people, so I'm really excited to talk to you guys today. I'm not going to be quite as slick as they are, so I apologize for that in advance, but I will answer all your questions in extreme detail, so feel free to talk to me afterward. Fast data. Fast data. Even Jason and Sherwin kept saying big data and not fast data. I think there's a big distinction between what fast data and big data is. And I want to walk through sort of the difference in terms of where TellApart is going with how we use data compared to where the market has been prior to this. So big data, I found a few terms online in terms of big data being a term that sort of jumped the shark and sort of started to lose meaning in the marketplace. Like everybody has big data right now. Everybody has databases. Everybody has data. It's all big data. There's books about big data. It's in the fiction section, by the way. What was this? This is critiques of the big data paradigm, why big data is the wrong thing to focus your business on, why it's a bad idea. Okay, so big data for me actually does have meaning. I think it's important to like actually say like what big data is. Big data is data that you can't process on a single machine. Big data is data that takes a cluster to process or distributed infrastructure to process. So you need a distributed database, you need something like Hadoop or MapReduce or some distributed paradigm to be able to process it. That's big data. It has meaning. And when you use big data, that's what you should mean by it. Fast data puts a twist on big data. Fast data is not only do I have data that's in a distributed infrastructure that requires serious engineering talent to process, but I also want it to be available in real time, and I want it to be available instantly. So one of our shoppers goes to a retailer site. They look at a bunch of pants, and they get interrupted in their shopping session, and they go off and read blogs. I want to be able to show them an ad that's personalized to them seconds after they've been on a merchant's website. And I want that ad to be exactly the right products that they need to see now to be able to be driven back to that merchant's website and purchase something that they find value in. We all get distracted. We all get interrupted now. Instant messaging and work can reach us at any point in time and stuff like that. It's important to be able to use those marketing channels and personalize the ad experience that you're seeing, or any marketing experience, not just advertising, to be able to deliver value to your customers. I won't go into technical details of how this happens, but it's on top of the predictive marketing platform that TellApart builds. So to be able to deliver and use fast data, we need to be able to ingest all this data in real time. We need to be able to pull data out by user. So when I see you online and I have the opportunity to serve you an ad in these real-time bidding exchanges that we participate in, I want to, in a matter of milliseconds, be able to know everything there is to know about you, pass you through all our predictive models, and then be able to buy an ad that's targeted specifically to you. So we can break how the TellApart platform works into a series of steps. The first step is going to be how we identify a user, how we then get information about that user in the form of a timeline. So every interaction that we've ever seen about that user over time. Make a bunch of predictions based off of what we know about that user, then personalize the marketing experience to them, execute on it, and then learn in a closed loop fashion. Both Sherwin and Jason have mentioned identity. And I think that identity is one of the secret weapons that we have in our arsenal of what makes TellApart special. So let's talk about what identity means for one of our partners, a merchant. So you have a client that sells things online. The signals that they have about identity are a cookie ID. Does everybody know what a cookie is in a web browser? Cookie will uniquely identify a web browser, right? You drop that cookie, you can identify that person in that web browser. Merchants will also have a merchant ID. So when you log into a merchant's website or you create an order and you expose your name and address and make the order, if a merchant sees two different cookies that have that same name and address, they can join across that. If you log into Nordstrom on your phone and on your desktop, they know that you're the same user. Okay, so they can start to do joins across devices. TellApart can ingest that information. So we know the cookie ID of each browser. We also know the merchant ID. We also have other sources of identification. So every ad network that we work with tells us who that user is. So if an ad network can figure out who a user is, now we can join on that information. Tag management IDs that can flow through either through a merchant or directly to us. Facebook can tell us when a user is using multiple devices. On a mobile device, we can get mobile app IDs. Private site exchanges, we can get other sources of information. So we build up this identity profile or network about a person, and we can start to recover a lot of things. So let's say that your computer crashes and you have to reinstall your browser. Well, we still want to be able to show you ads. So as soon as we know who you are from one of these channels, then we can join in our database and be able to show you personalized ads again. It's also important for conversion tracking to be able to deliver performance results to our clients. So if you're shopping on your phone, like many of you and us do, and then you go on to make a transaction on your desktop, we want to know that we impressioned you and that you clicked on that ad, were driven back to our merchant's website, looked at a bunch of products, but didn't convert until the next day when you transacted on your desktop computer. What we do with this identity signal is we take all the interactions that we've seen across all of these different identities and we merge them into one big profile. So you've been browsing Nordstrom on your phone, you've been browsing it on your desktop, you've been to another merchant's website, you've clicked on ads one place. We want to know how valuable you are, and we want to be able to predict what you're going to do in the future and what you'll respond to. So will you respond to an ad or not? Well, we want to look at all the data that we have about you essentially in real time and be able to predict whether you'll click on an ad, whether you'll go back to that merchant site and transact, If you do, what the order value of your purchase will be, so we can value how much that ad is worth to us and to our partners. We get a bunch of other information too. So we know what channels you've been on. People that shop on their mobile devices and their desktop devices are like 3 times more valuable than someone that only shows up on a single device. We know how many purchases you've made from merchants in the past. We can ingest their offline data, so we know whether you've been shopping in their in their brick and mortar stores. We know whether you've been calling their catalog 1-800 number, all the purchases that you've made. We can join all that data for the merchant and for us. Once we have the timeline, then we can start to build a profile about you. Retailers often think in terms of customer segments. So is it a man or a woman? What's their income level? How old are they? Where do they live? We can do all that demographic matching. But what we really want to know are things like, what are their favorite brands? What are their favorite categories? Just because someone was looking at dresses yesterday, if we see them back on site and they transacted with a dress yesterday, they might want to see shoes today, or they might want to see accessories, or they might want to see jewelry. Other types of predictions that can live in this profile service are things like the propensity to click on an ad over the long term and the propensity to click on an ad right now at this very moment in time. And that probability of clicking is going to be different if it's a Facebook newsfeed ad or if it's an ad just on a display ad on a website. Once we have that timeline and profile, then we can pass it through our machine learning system in real time to generate these predictions. So there's a bunch of things that we can pre-populate in our system. There's other types of predictions that we have to make instantaneously. When we get a bid request for a particular network, we want to be able to make that prediction in real time. Oftentimes, what people do when they shop is they go to these coupon sites, right? So you get all the way through your transaction, and then you Google for coupon codes for a merchant. You go off and say like, oh, I'm shopping on online shoes or something like that. Yes?
So what's the mechanism for aggregating this data, for getting permission to access this data? Is there a big exchange for it? Is there a payment involved? What's that? Where is it all coming from?
That's a great question. So the integration that we have with our merchants is extremely lightweight.
It's very
Lightweight. So when you view one of our merchants' websites, we, alongside with all their other marketing partners, will drop a little tag. It's called a tag. It's a line of JavaScript, essentially.
Is it like a more sophisticated cookie? It's on a much grander.
Yes, it's like a cookie. What it does is when the web page is loading and rendering in your browser, is it makes a call out to one of our servers, and it says, this cookie, ID 1234, is viewing this page, and on that page is this particular product.
You have to have all those relationships in place for this game
Yep.
to play.
Yep.
So I think the question is really, how are you incentivizing these folks to exchange data with you?
All of our merchants want us to show ads on their behalf. So anybody that we're showing ads for.
All of your clients.
Yes.
But the ad exchanges, the social networks, they don't really care about that.
The ad exchanges want our money because we're buying ads on their network.
You're buying their ads, so you have a
And
minimum buy.
yeah, and this is the way that the game works. Clients want us because we're buying ads on their behalf. Ad networks want our money because we're buying ads on their network. Because of that, we get identity from the ad network because they have to tell us who the user is. Anybody that buys ads in this real-time ad exchange wants to know who the user is, and they're tracking their own data about these users. So everybody that's doing this is tracking data to some degree. And we have very strict silos. So although when I go back here, when I talk about this data, this merchant circle, each one of these profiles is sort of unique to a merchant. So our partners are often selling very similar products, so like luxury clothing. And they don't want us to use their data to market for one of their competitors, of course. So we have that all siloed. We won't use merchant data collected from merchant A to market for merchant B.
So the smaller players have to have this co-opetition thing. The bigger players like Facebook don't really need to interact with you. And so how do you incentivize those guys?
Can you repeat the question, please?
The question was, the smaller players don't need to interact with us, but the bigger players like Facebook do.
No.
So why does Facebook interact with us?
No. The small guys kind of need to, right? They're
Yeah.
all on the same level.
Right.
But the big guys aren't, and they don't need to interact with you.
But they do, because they're liable to their investors, right? They make a lot of money off of ads. And the way we work with our clients is they need to sell products. And the way they do it is they work with a number of partners, not just us,
Right.
to drive revenue. So if you look at Facebook, I didn't get to listen to their earnings call. They just announced it yesterday, I believe.
Today.
Or it was today. A high percentage of their revenue is from ad space. So they look for partners to help them to deliver ads that perform well.
Right. But that's a short-term play, right? We'll figure it out and they'll do it on their own.
I don't necessarily know that, potentially. Because if you look at that.
History is any indicator, right?
Well, Google's been around a long time, and there's a whole ecosystem of partners who drive billions of dollars of business through the Google ecosystem.
So you're talking about syndication,
Syndication.
that they're working with a variety of organizations like yours of syndicating their ad content across multiple channels.
Except for, we create the ad content, we are filling their real estate that they are making available. So they make a certain amount of real estate available for a large number of partners to populate, as opposed to creating the content, syndicating the content. Right, so we create the content.
They're more of a broker than a syndicator.
So one of the things I'll say is I joined TellApart nearly 4 years ago. It was 3.5 years ago. And at the time, the big competitor in this space was Google. And my big question for Josh, our CEO, was why won't Google just do this for us? And there's an important reason why Google can't do what we do. Google does retargeting, right? So retargeting is TellApart's major product. Google does retargeted ads on their ad network. The data that retailers don't want to share with Google is transaction data. So we drop these tags on a merchant's website. We see all the interactions. We see the product views. We see the category views. Retailers are totally happy to share that with Google. What they don't want to share is that transaction pixel. Because the moment that Google knows how people are transacting, they can use that to influence the search results for that retailer's products. So retailers have been very hesitant to share that, and that creates the opportunity for this third party to sit in between the ad networks and the retailers themselves. Now Facebook presents kind of a different challenge, because why wouldn't retailers want to share transaction pixels or data with Facebook? And in fact, they actually are doing it right now. They want to be able to evaluate how well Facebook ads perform. And Facebook has sort of closed the loop on this overall ad performance evaluation. I don't know what to call it, but in terms of evaluating the ad, so Facebook is getting this transaction data, and Facebook could compete with us if they wanted to. And in fact, I think that they're planning on it. The types of retailers that we work with, we focused exclusively on the very large enterprise level retailers that are looking for like one-stop shops for personalization. Facebook's not going to be allowed to have a seat on these other ad exchanges. They're not going to get a seat on the Google ad network. They're not going to get a seat on the Yahoo network. That will be reserved for third parties aren't competing directly with the ad networks, but instead spending on those ad networks.
I mean, if your customer base is Fortune 500, and that represents 80% of the business, you don't think that those guys will cooperate with one another?
I think that there's enough in the long tail for Facebook to make a killing on ads. I mean, now we're projecting out really long term, when they're going after pure margin and not worrying about just the total gross revenue. So I mean, I don't know what happens long term, but you know, Facebook is smart. They don't need to acquire a company to build that type of thing. So yeah, I think in the short term though, or the medium term, I'm not.
We should say,
What's the time reference that you guys are looking at? I mean, is this a 1 year, 3 year?
Sorry, can I ask, can
Sure.
we move on with the presentation
Yeah.
and save the questions for the end? Sure. Sorry, thank you.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah, we'll come back to it.
So we were talking about how to use these predictions in real time. There's a few types of predictions that we make. I'll just spend a second on this slide. We've talked a lot about the user modeling. One of the other things that TellApart does very aggressively is model what other people are doing in these auctions. So all these auctions that we're participating in are second price auctions. We need to know what other people are valuing this user at. That also leaks information to us because all the people we're competing with in these real-time auctions are giving a little bit of an indication about what they know. So we talked about how we get data. We get data directly from the merchants. We also get data from these other sources of identity. But then other people, when they're bidding against us, also leak their value of these users, and we can use that to influence our predictive models. So now we have to personalize. We made a prediction, we've bid in an ad exchange. Now I need to figure out what to show someone in one of these marketing engagements, whether it's a display ad or an email or a native advertisement. We use the exact same data that we did to figure out who to bid on in order to populate these ads. And there's some really interesting prediction problems here in making recommendations. The goal is to get someone to go back and make a transaction. Yes?
Can you elaborate what you said when you're bidding in the auctions, like your competitors leak some of their data and you use that?
I will do it quickly and then we can expand on that in the Q&A at the end. So what I mean is this. Are you guys all familiar with how eBay auctions work? Okay, eBay auction, someone lists an item, you bid up until the auction ends. The winner doesn't pay the amount that they bid, they pay the amount that the loser bid. So if somebody bid $90, I bid $100, I end up paying $90 plus some epsilon. That's how these real-time ad exchanges work too. And it's an optimal auction if you think about it just as a single interaction, but because everybody's tracking these user identities over time, I know what the market is valuing this user at on average, and I can incorporate that into my bidding strategy over time as well. In terms of picking out products, the problem is, what do I show someone in an ad that will get them to go back and make a purchase on a merchant's website? There's a couple of different types of shopper profiles that we might encounter. We might encounter someone, you see this oftentimes on Twitter, we have our name TellApart in the click-through URLs on our ad. So you click through the URL and TellApart appears in the URL from the ad. So it's fun sometimes to search Twitter for TellApart and just see what people are tweeting about, products that they've clicked on an ad for and are now looking at. You see a lot of teenagers tweeting about dresses. So I really want this dress from Nordstrom. Someone convinced me not to buy it. And this extended shopping cycle where they're clicking on ads, they're engaging with the product, and they're looking for some sort of like social response to convince them to go one way or the other. That's sort of like the person that's really thinking hard about making a purchase. Well, what they want to see in the ad is the exact same product that they viewed on a merchant's website, and they want to see it a lot. And the more they see it, the more they think about it, and eventually they'll go back and purchase it. There's other people that are like me, where they go on a site, they want to shop really quickly, they don't see what they like, and they leave because they're not gonna buy anything that they saw. What I want is a form of discovery. I want to be recommended products that I would buy if I had found them when I was on the site for 5 minutes. You can think about mixtures of the two people too. Sometimes you might view a product and want to purchase that exact product. Sometimes you want to buy things that complement it. Whatever it is, that all lives in the data. So we know what products are purchased when somebody views a product. We know what people do after they view a product and they interact with our ads and so on. The last step is the closed loop. So one of the nice things about this is as we work with a merchant and as we show ads on their behalf, we learn more and more about how those products work in ads. We learn more and more about how those users work. The other piece of this, not just the closed loop learning, but the machine intelligence part is oftentimes people have considered other products or other vendors in addition to TellApart. And these vendors have a lot of knobs. And I want to advertise for these categories at a certain level of spend, and these categories I don't want to target quite as aggressively. I have certain goals inside my business. What TellApart does is we work with customers that want like a one-stop shop. They want a black box marketing product. I want to make as much revenue as possible, or I want to make as much profit as possible. Then you work with TellApart, and the machine optimizes for everything. And so that's what the data science team at TellApart does essentially, is find the biggest needle-moving changes that we can push out, change them, and then everybody wins. And so that's sort of the pipeline of how TellApart works. Identity, profile, predict, personalize, execute, and learn. Just a little bit more about the actual engineering challenges that we address. When we talk about this real-time ad exchange, when you're viewing a website and an ad pops up and it has personalized products in it, there's a bunch of steps that we have to do, right? We have to identify the user, we have to get the timeline from the user, we have to make all these predictions, and then calibrate based on what we know about the environment. Well, that all happens in about 100 milliseconds. So when we start talking about fast data, 100 milliseconds end to end But really, because of network latency and talking to these ad networks, we only have 40 milliseconds on TellApart servers. Just to give you some idea of what that time scale is, the 95th percentile of reading data from a hard drive takes a minimum of like 15 milliseconds. So we have to do at least 2 disk reads in terms of getting who the user is and then getting their features. And if we do that just sort of naively, we've already run out of time. We can't possibly do that. So the engineering challenges here are very real, particularly for the way that TellApart addresses this problem, which is trying to do things in real time versus caching data and storing things over time. We'll just drop some numbers. TellApart today handles 6 billion requests every day. We handle 150,000 real-time requests per second. We ingest 2 terabytes of data. It's actually, I think, closer to 6 terabytes of data now every day, and that's compressed data going into our databases, which means we have on the order of 3 petabytes of data in our system.
I'll just talk for a couple seconds about impact. There's been some good questions, so I want to make sure we leave some time for Q&A. When you show people what they want to see, when you don't show relevant ads, when you show truly personal and relevant ads, they're going to click, right? And clicking isn't important, it's going on to buy. So Nick's talked a lot about the platform, what we optimize for. We're optimizing to drive revenue for our partners. People don't click on those ads, they go away. So in a lot of ways, it's an interesting business model. It's a fully aligned business model, and I'll get to that in a second. But those people then go on to convert, which is the most important metric for our partners. From there, the metric I used earlier, the 8% incremental revenue, I'll talk about how we get to that in a moment. We work with many top Fortune 100, 500 companies out there, and we're proud of the brands that we work with. We have minimal churn, and we've worked with a lot of these partners for a long time. But just to give you a sense for the type of partners that are leveraging this type of technology to really glean insights about their shoppers, and then to be able to take those insights, and to be able to do smarter, more intelligent advertising and marketing to them. When I mentioned aligning our incentives, this is an important part of our model. You're only paying for click conversions. The click conversion, in its most obvious definition, is somebody who actually clicks on an ad and goes on to buy. The opposite of that would, or a definition that is congruent to that would be view-through conversions, right? Somebody who sees an ad and at some point in the future goes on to buy. Our marketers only pay for click conversion. We've put together an A/B study to then show them the impact, the true impact of TellApart, because as you guys all know, there is going to be a halo effect from showing ads, right? Billboards, TV, there's huge multi-billion-dollar industries out there that bank on that. Now our model is purely performance-based, meaning you pay for the click conversions, but we'll put together a study to show you how the TellApart program in general is driving you that full value or that full impact. Everything we do, contrary to I think how sometimes we think about ingesting all that data and making it marketable for our partners, everything we do is completely transparent. So what comes out of that box is 100% transparent to our partners. What I mean by that is they'll get down to the order level IDs. So while we may not know that TID, TellApart ID 12345 is John Smith, we send all that order ID information to our partners, and they can very easily match order ID information with their consumer information. So they can see where that conversion came from, how impactful it was, and why really more are coming from this channel as opposed to that channel. So we feel like we've built a fully aligned platform here for our retailers, for ourselves, and for consumers, because they're seeing what's beneficial to them. A little bit about our A/B study. I think everybody here who knows how to do a traditional A/B study will, this is just a very simple definition of that, but basically splitting it into 2 groups, right? An A and a B group. Growing those groups to statistical significance and being able to measure across those groups, right? So the TellApart group will be exposed to TellApart ads, while the control group will be, won't see any ads. We won't do any PSA or public service announcement ads or anything like that. We know at bid time who that shopper is, and we just opt not to show them an ad. I like to tell our partners, anybody can game this, right? You can take all your high quality shoppers and put them in one group, take all the low quality shoppers and put them in another group, totally game the system. Getting back to the transparency that I mentioned earlier, you can't game it when you share order IDs, right? It's very easy to see the composition of the two groups because that marketer can then match everything up and know exactly how those groups are performing. We'll take the difference, the delta between the TellApart group and the control group, so the additional conversions, and we calculate lift and incrementality. And I'll end with two quick case studies. One is from Neiman Marcus and the other is from Revolve, where I showed you the email before. Click conversions, right? Not only is it great for performance, it's great for marketers. They only pay for tangible conversions. But for Neiman Marcus, when we onboarded them, immediately they saw 10 to 12% increase in their click conversions. What does that mean? Click conversions are important because they're tangible, they're trackable, but more importantly, the halo effect, right? For every one click conversion, you're probably going to see 3 to 4 additional conversions. They're not paying for that, but that would then be your halo effect. The important thing about clicks, right? Clicks are important. Clicks are a leading indicator of engagement with ads. If nobody clicks on an ad, was it ever seen? Was it below the fold? All these questions start to come up. But when you align your business model in delivering clicks and more importantly, click conversions, it becomes a really meaningful metric. And then Revolve Clothing, I mentioned the email stat earlier, but another partner, this is an example of a partner who's really been kind of on the forefront of testing some of our new technology and has benefited from it as well. So there were some of our first newsfeed ads, some of our first Facebook right-hand side ads, some of our first mobile website custom audience through Facebook's various products. We delivered ads for them. They've also been a early adopter in testing, right? We have a very good relationship with Facebook. And some of the tests that we've done with Facebook include kind of front-back ads, right? Showing the front of the shoe, the side of the shoe, landscape, Polaroid, different types of ad formats to see if that increases click-through rates. It's important for us to increase click-through rates because the more people that click, more of them will go on to buy. So it's important for us to iterate on the front end so the outcomes on the back end are important. That's what we've got. So I guess we'll open this up to Q&A.
So does Amazon do this themselves? Do they do that in-house?
Amazon does this in-house. Yeah, they do it themselves. Yeah. Have you seen some Amazon ads? Yeah. Amazon actually, outside of this whole presentation, I, as my wife could tell you, buy a lot from Amazon. And the ads that I get from Amazon just don't seem very intelligent, right? I've already bought that product and I'll get ads for like 3 weeks. I don't know if you guys have experienced that. But that's not, I mean, they can spend their money. They can spend their money through Facebook Exchange. They can spend their money through the other various exchanges. But it's probably not the best use of their money when a customer's already bought that product and they're going on to actually show them the product that they just transacted on. But to answer your question, yeah.
And is there a limit to the number of retailers you can bring into your fold?
Right now, it's a good question. Right now, we're focused predominantly on retail. Every single one of our retail models is exclusive to that particular retailer, so we don't share data across those parties. So no, right now, like I said, we're focused on retail. We think there's a huge opportunity there and a great footprint.
Actually, the one thing I'd add is the volume of bid requests that we receive is probably 50 times to 100 times the number of merchant interactions that we receive.
The volume of what?
Bid requests from the ad networks. So if you think about how TellApart scales and what our bottleneck is, our bottleneck, technologically speaking, is actually the ad network integrations. So as you navigate the web, there are individuals that we receive 30 to 50,000 bid requests for in a day, versus they won't necessarily even be on a merchant site every day. So the volume of traffic that we have to handle and the amount of data that we get is mostly constrained by the ad network. Additional merchant integrations doesn't pose a computational problem to us.
Just one more thing to build on that. It's not a limit of the number of retailers per se, but there's certain characteristics. So as you saw by the logos, we typically work with larger retailers because we need a certain amount of data. So we target, there's a certain threshold and certain characteristics that we target as a company, but that's just because of efficiency, but there's no technical limitations. We've designed the system to scale as many clients as we need.
A couple of questions here. When were you founded?
It's on.
All right. When were you founded?
So we were founded in 2009, so we just celebrated our 5-year anniversary.
And how many employees do you have?
We are right around 80. But going back to the founding question, and that leads to some of the questions before, our 2 co-founders were ex-Google. engineering and product managers who are very familiar. They spent the 5 years before TellApart working at Google in their ads business, so intimately familiar with the ecosystem.
Yeah, the things that come out of this for me are, number one, your span of control, and number two is what are you doing with the metadata? You're saying that you're not sharing your individual data, but there's metadata there that you've got to be using somehow.
And what was the first point you said? The second one was
span and control.
Span of control was one of the things I was looking at, because that's one of your confining boundaries. And the other then is you're using metadata. It sounds like you've got some very good engines. You're doing a lot of good things with machine learning, and you're playing on that. But I'm not seeing how you're using the metadata, because I see a much bigger play than what I'm hearing described.
So I'll answer the second question first, which is the metadata and using the metadata. For the retargeting product specifically, the product level interactions and recency play a really big role in performance of the product. So the most important data that we have is which products you viewed most recently. Beyond that, if you think about different parts of the shopping funnel, so there's prospecting, which is finding new customers and driving them on site, and there'd be re-engagement at the bottom, which is somebody that's been on site and purchased in the past, or been on site and hasn't purchased in the past, and driving them back to the merchant site. That's where the metadata becomes more important. So for prospecting, for example, we know what behaviors a shopper for one of our merchants engages in. So we know what websites they visit, we know how they interact with a merchant, but also how they interact with the web in general. So those are the types of patterns that we can pick out and then engage with when we're doing something like prospecting, like trying to drive new to file customers. For re-engagement, there's also metadata information that plays in, but it's still the merchant level interactions that are most valuable for us. Did you want to talk about the first part?
So this is actually my introduction, my first conversation about big data, fast data. So thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So coming from a place of not knowing anything about this, I wonder if you could give me some information about if you deem an identity to be not valuable, someone that does not click on ads, what do you do with that information?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what does a valuable shopper look like for TellApart? So there's fewer valuable shoppers than not valuable shoppers. A valuable shopper for TellApart is someone that engages with our ads and has clicked in the past, someone that makes a lot of purchases, someone that shops a lot. So it's actually really easy to pick out the valuable shoppers. It's also actually pretty easy to pick out the not valuable shoppers because they bounce immediately from a merchant's website and you don't see them again. One of the challenges for us is from sort of the middle of the bell curve, the mid-range person. What do you do with them? Like, how many ads do you show them? What pace do you show ads to them? How often do you send an email? We had the Amazon question earlier. You know, does Amazon do their own retargeting? How does Amazon measure the efficacy of their retargeting products? Well, maybe they're only retargeting for really expensive items, and that's how they're spending their money. We don't have the luxury. We're trying to retarget for all items. And so because we charge on a revenue share basis from click conversions, we want to make sure that our ad spend is proportional to the revenue that someone could possibly drive us. So someone that looks at a very expensive item or we think is likely to buy a really expensive item, we're going to show ads to proportional to the value of that item. If someone's looking at really inexpensive trinkets and isn't clicking our ads, then the machine will adjust automatically and not spend that much on ads. Now, then there's still the question of like, what about other channels like email? What's the frequency or pace that you send emails? The worst thing we could possibly do is to drive someone to unsubscribe from an email list. And that's the problem with emails right now. I send all marketing emails directly to like my spam folder. I have email filters for that. And it's a total missed opportunity because if a certain retailer would tell me when they're doing their half annual sale every year, I would immediately go to their website and buy all sorts of shoes. So why can't I just get that email from them, and why can't the machine be smart enough to pick that out? That's one of the goals of TellApart, is to be able to reach that level of intelligence.
Thank you.
How do you manage privacy but still delivering personalization for your consumers?
How do you manage privacy? Sorry.
I was going to do
okay,
that. No,
perfect.
fine.
Okay, good. You're on it.
The question is, how do you manage privacy while still delivering performance to your retailers? So One of the things I said when we were talking about identity, do you want me to?
Go for it.
I'm sorry. They don't let me talk to people, so I'm not going to let me.
It's like the tiger got out of the cage today.
One of the things I said about when merchants can identify users is they can merge identities on their side when someone exposes PII, personally identifiable information. So you transact, you say your name and address, and the merchant says, oh, I know who that is, they've transacted in the past. We don't want that information on our side. All we want from the merchant is an identifier. So the things that aren't valuable to me are the things that are actually sensitive to individuals, which is names, addresses, credit card numbers. We don't have any credit card numbers on our site. I don't want to know anybody's name or address or social media ID or anything like that. When the ad networks give us an identifier, it's essentially an anonymous identifier. It's just consistent over time. So the privacy impact is, well, we have an anonymous ID, and we know a lot of information about this anonymous ID. So as an engineering team, our challenge is to make sure that we don't expose that data to any hackers, that we certainly don't expose our merchants to any liability in terms of leaking their data. But beyond that, it's not a huge concern because the type of data that we have is not the most sensitive data that people are super concerned about. I think you had your hand up first.
Back to the question around like siloing your data versus building out the user profile. Do you use user profile data, like you built out a profile of someone because you know where they went, you know, cookie match on Facebook and all that? Can you then use that to inform your bidding when you're working with like another client?
Sure. So the question was, when we silo data, can we use data from like ad network interactions and where someone is online that we started tracking when they were on one merchant site for another merchant that they then later visited? Do you want to? That's fine. I'm just trying to share. The way that we distinguish this is merchant data is data collected from a merchant's website. So product views, category views, transactions, that's merchant data. Any data that a merchant gives us is merchant data. We actually, not only do we track users online once they've been on a merchant site, but we also get what we call the fire hose of bid requests. So we aren't just tracking the users that we've seen on a merchant site, we're also getting interactions from just users from their ad network IDs, and later on if we see them on a merchant site, then we already know a lot of information about them and can market to them in certain ways. So any information that we collect through ad networks or other partners, we consider TellApart information, and that's fair game to use when we're personalizing our marketing campaigns.
Could you do, like, if someone just like does a lot of click conversions on ModCloth and then you see them on Neiman Marcus?
We would consider that merchant level data. So and I mean, particularly, I don't know if ModCloth and Neiman are a great example. If they're competitors, then Neiman would definitely not want us to share Neiman data with ModCloth and vice versa. They consider that their valuable user. They don't want to share that. Anything that we would possibly do in the future would be purely opt-in, where anybody that decided to share that data and pool that data for prospecting purposes, for example, you would have to opt in to share your data with other retailers.
How do you deal with users that are either on incognito mode or just there's no history on these people?
Sure.
How do you?
That's a great question. How do we deal with people in incognito mode or people that want to opt out of our program? Do you want to talk about opt-outs?
I think we're both going to tell you the same thing. If he misses anything, I'll make sure.
Now they're just making me talk. So one of the things that I like about TellApart is we are incentivized in doing the best for our merchants. So we're trying to drive revenue to our merchants. We're also incentivized for our customers. So if I am tracking you, and anonymously, of course, I don't know your information, obviously. If I'm tracking you and it doesn't look like you're going to go back and purchase from a merchant's website, I'm disincentivized to show you ads because I only get paid when you click convert. So if I can look at you and say, this person isn't going to click on an ad, and if you're in incognito window, then I lose cookies on you as soon as you close the window. Correct. If somehow I merge you across, but you still don't click on ads, hopefully the machine gets smart enough to not show you any ads, because again, like what we don't want to do is over time decrease the efficacy of our program. The more money we spend on someone like you that doesn't click on ads, then the less money I have to spend on people that do engage with ads and do respond to that marketing channel. The other twist then is what happens to people that block ads? Well, that's actually perfect, because then we don't ever waste our money on people that don't want to see ads. One of the great questions that we always ask like engineers when we recruit engineers is, how many of you respond to ads or view ads? And everybody, oh, I hate ads, I block ads. And the goal, like I said for the email question, or when I talked about email before, the goal would be to make ads so engaging that they don't feel like ads, that they feel like information. And that's sort of like the holy grail of email. It's the holy grail of display ads too. I don't ever want to show you an ad that is irrelevant to you or feels like noise. I only want to engage with you when you actually want to go back to a merchant site and make a purchase. And then I'm perfectly aligned with you as well.
What about a current session? Like, I'm having an issue where if I want to buy a suit and I click on this suit separate and I want a blue suit and I don't like it, I go back. Can you track any of that or no? Because I feel like that's very useful as well. That's browsing, and that's technically an ad in the marketer's own website, right? Or sorry, the retailer's own website. But that's probably their side.
You're saying in the same shopping session,
yes,
you click on two different suits?
No, I click on a suit, I go forward, I want a blue suit, I want it in wool, my search results don't give me anything. I click back, I'm looking for something else, I fail, this is just...
Yeah, we could go into the technical problems that we've solved and not solved. I will say one of the limitations of our platform right now is that we're heavily dependent on the way that merchants organize their product catalog and organize their SKUs. And so we have one client that really wants us to solve this problem, which is you go and view fleeces, fleece jackets, and they don't have the size that you want. They want us to be able to say, well, we know what size of product you buy and that it's out of stock, and not show that product in ads for you. It's like, yeah, that's really smart. One of the problems we run into is, one is shared computer usage. So how do we know whether it's you or another person using your computer? What happens when you buy gifts and they're different sizes? Well, that happens during holiday shopping season, and by the way, that's when people shop a lot and respond to ads a lot. So you don't want to be doing that type of filtering. It's not great to do the stupid thing. You have to do something really smart, and the really smart thing is an ongoing challenge.
How long do you store a user profile? So you've identified a user, you've cataloged their shopping purchases, styles, habits, and with time you're able to recommend potential products for them. How long do you have a repository of data storage for that user?
So that's a great question. How long do we maintain our data and store the user profile for our users? The short answer is forever. The long answer is more nuanced. One of the things that we've spent a lot of time, we were actually talking about this before the session, is re-architecting our infrastructure to be very responsive using Spark and all sorts of new fancy technologies. What that gives us the ability to do is to completely regenerate our profile data store whenever we want to make changes to the algorithm, to experiment with new algorithms. For example, like when do you decide that two identities are actually the same user, and when do you decide that they're not? Simply tracking like email opens and merchant identifiers often isn't enough. You have to be looking at that over time. So we regenerate profiles quite a bit. We also lose track of users over time too. So somebody gets a new computer and we just don't have cookies on that user, so we have to learn about them all over again. But we were founded by Google engineers, and there's a lot of value in data, so we just have this data there, and we have every interaction that we've ever recorded. We don't expire that data artificially.
So you guys have talked a little bit about the different challenges that you face. What about the opportunities that you see going forward?
All right, this one, we can all probably chime in a little bit here. Well, first and foremost, we talked about the proliferation of different marketing channels. Right now, we're still laser focused on retail. And as all these new and innovative marketing opportunities present themselves, we're working very closely with them. So there's a number of products that we're working in alphas and betas right now that aren't generally available. So as the opportunities are out there to drive revenue, we'll be continuing to do that within retail. Also, now that we're 5 years in as a business, we're starting to evaluate other industries. Where are there other industries where we can provide the same approach to provide value for them as well?
I would just add, product roadmap, right? There's a lot of products. I think we've alluded to a couple of them here, but.
So generally it's kind of lateral, like expanding into different market segments and different industries rather than like vertical.
I think there's two vectors, right? I think it's getting into other industries, but I think it's also the product vector as well, right? Being able to scale it both ways, I think is very much in our crosshairs.
And we're very proud of the clients we have today, but there's still a lot more. There are many more retailers that we can still work with.
So I know, how do I phrase this? So I know a lot of companies probably do this in-house, like Amazon and whatever, but are there like big competitors you have that do just this as well? Or are you guys kind of like the only ones, or how big is that market for what you guys do?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. There are a number of competitors. Want to answer this appropriately. For what we're doing, I don't, in full transparency, I don't know of another company that has the breadth of products and footprint that we've gotten into right now. I would kind of categorize them into tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 competitors. And mainly that's kind of the size or the scope of clients that they work with. Others do far more sort of transactional elements, things like this product was put in a cart. I don't really have a sense for identity. I don't really have a sense for that customer value score, but I know this product was put in the cart and I have a product feed so I can show them that product. Typically, you're not going to be able to do that at scale because the economics don't work. So I would say there's a couple other companies out there. I'm happy to name them if you'd like, but I don't know that they're household names. Yeah.
Just to build off what he was saying is, one of our differentiators is that we have an integrated suite. So for each of our products, we come against specific competitors.
Yeah, cool.
So our flagship or targeting product, there's a couple usual suspects we come against. When it comes to the Facebook ecosystem, there's a couple people who specialize in that. Email, it's a different universe of competitors.
Right.
So doing exactly what we do, we don't really have a head-to-head competitor, but for each different product, we have an ecosystem.
Go ahead.
You had mentioned earlier that you're a revenue sharing model. Can you expand on that a little bit, how it works?
Sure. So for, again, click conversions. So somebody, I'll just do an example. Somebody goes to Neiman Marcus. They put a handbag, or they look at a handbag. They happen to see one of our ads. They click on it. It was a handbag, it was a pair of shoes, it was a suit. They'll click on that ad, they'll go to the site, and they'll buy that product. That product was a transaction value of $500. We would do a revenue share on that based on whatever negotiated percentage we had with that particular merchant. Neiman Marcus in this case, it could be anything.
So the conversion happens because they clicked on your ad?
Correct.
You're able to track that and then charge back?
Correct.
So it doesn't have anything to do with how long you had to track them, or how many different ads you had to show them, or how much you spent to get them to convert?
That's a great question, yeah, correct. So all of that will be, I mean, we take all the media risk, to your point, right? So we'll show if it's one impression or 100, not 100, because we have frequency caps, but we'll show one impression, they go on to click. We're not charging for the impressions that we show and pay for. We're not charging for the clicks that were driven as a result of those impressions that we delivered. We're only charging a rev share fee on the actual product that was clicked and purchased.
And so if I look at a $500 handbag on my phone, decide I want it, but I go home and do my purchase online on my computer at home, how do you measure that? How do you capture that? How do you charge for that?
Yeah, cross device. Do you want to talk about that?
No, why don't you cross device?
Go ahead, Jay.
I can talk about that. That's actually,
yeah.
That's an evolving market. That's an evolving space. And actually, Facebook is one of the leaders there. So one of the things that we've found is that people are really, Sherwin mentioned this before, those Facebook newsfeed ads, people really engage with them. So we find that people really click on those. But when people click on those and go on to buy, more than 80% of those people who buy on a different device. But because Facebook's been leading the way with these cross-device conversion tracking, we're able to measure that, report that back to the retailer to say, hey, anonymous shopper XYZ interacted with your brand on their mobile phone. They went on to buy that product 2 days later on their desktop. and we can track that. So,
but the subjectivity. I mean, if I'm the retailer and I'm paying you, I don't know what the rate is, but if I'm paying you a good rate for conversion, and we've got some subjective measure, that's going to be an issue.
I mean, they say mobile's a unique beast right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's all
so-
unique, right? It's all new too.
Yep.
And mobile billing right now is
Mobile's different.
Yeah, we have it separate from just pure desktop retargeting billing. If you exclude mobile and cross-device, you bill on a rev share for click conversions. How do you know what the right rev share is? Well, a CMO or a merchant's marketing team is going to have certain ROI goals for their different marketing channels. We can take the conversion lift study, and that's how we calibrate for the right rev share. It's like, okay, well, that's really complicated. Why can't we just use the CLS? Well, click conversions are something that the merchant can audit on their side. So every time somebody clicks on a TellApart ad, the merchant can look at the click params that are sent through that click. So when somebody lands on site, they can look and say, oh, TellApart drove this user to my site. They can audit what we're saying for click conversions with their transactions and their own logs. And our merchants are sophisticated enough to be able to do that. So it's auditable, and then you just have to balance for all the incremental view-through conversions that you're also getting through the ads. And that's what the CLS or the conversional.
In a quick way to answer your question, the subjectivity of that, we actually back it into a click, right? We say what's the most tangible measurement that somebody engaged with this particular product or
But at
ad.
the end of the day, it's a swag, and so you use chirp lift, and so I'm imagining that's the delta between what it was and what it is.
It's a delta with, for sake of simplicity, the TellApart program on showing ads and the TellApart program off, not showing ads.
I'm going to take the last question, and then if you guys want to go after. But the last question is a two-part question. How fast is TellApart growing, and are you hiring?
I'll let these guys handle that.
Well, we're hiring a ton, especially engineers. So we were looking for a lot of peers of Nick Orsi right here. But so we are rapidly growing. I'm not sure. I mean,
100% growth year over year.
We just tripled the size of our office to accommodate the growth that we're seeing right now. We've been profitable since inception and doing pretty well. What was the second part of your question? Yes, we're hiring and we're growing.
Great. Thank you guys so